Today's conversation is sponsored by First Generation Capital Partners. If you're an accredited investor and you want to know about how we're helping other accredited investors keep more of their income, go to firstgencp.com/going long.
You're listening to the Going Long podcast with Billy Keels, the #1 podcast for long-distance real asset investing.
Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. And yes, I'm your host, Billy Keels, and we are back for another one-to-one conversation because this is me and you. We're talking about the things that are on my mind, or I guess I'm doing all the talking. I'm still getting used to saying that. This is kind of interesting. My biggest hope and desire is that these monologues are helping you, or me sharing my thoughts are helping you. They're helping you to understand different concepts, and more importantly, helping you to take action so that you can continue to move closer to your goals and not just stay stuck in this theoretical kind of framework. So today is actually something we're going to talk about. This is going to be a really brief episode because I don't want to overwork this one, especially when you're someone who is working on doing something new for the first time. Too much talking, too much detail can get you really stuck, and I don't want to do that at all. But I do want to recognize your written reviews, your honest written reviews, because you know what? Once again, the podcast continues to move up in the top 1.5% because you continue to download, you continue to share, and you continue to leave your honest written reviews. If you haven't, take a second to do that, especially on the Apple Podcasts platform, because I'm going to read it here. I'm going to read it in front of people that are listening from over 30 different countries. And we're having tens of thousands of downloads, which is amazing. And so I want to read your name here in front of everybody and let them know what you're thinking about the show. So I want to read just before we get in today, because today is a topic that is also close to my heart, but as I mentioned, I want to keep it short. It is about how you are getting feedback and how you are reacting to that feedback, especially when you're a perfectionist or a recovering perfectionist. It can be a little intimidating sometimes, but this is all in the process of helping you to be able to make decisions, move faster, and understand these principles. But let's get back to today's written review. And today's honest written review comes from CPA/ABV. It's really kind of funny because, of course, these Apple Podcast platforms, whatever name you put, that's what it is. So CPA/ABV says, enjoyable interview. BK has an easygoing conversational style and focuses on delivering value to his audience. If you're interested in investing away from your local area, be sure to listen. So thank you very much, CPA/ABV. Really appreciate that. I'm glad that people from 30 different countries around the world, or 30 plus countries and tens of thousands of downloads, are able to hear more about you. And I appreciate you taking the time to leave your honest written review. And if you haven't done that, go ahead and leave your honest written review. So, but as it relates to today's conversation, I mentioned it's about getting feedback and about being able to react to that feedback. And so I know that it can be challenging because we've talked about this recently, and being able to make a decision, especially if you're making a decision on imperfect information, if you're not used to doing that, it can feel super uncomfortable. And we shared with you in one of the previous episodes, I think it was episode 239, how you can, if you haven't listened to that, go in, out, it's more detail, but you will hear about the 40-70 principle. And if it's something that you're not used to doing, when you apply it, it can feel very uncomfortable. And the problem is it's because it's a muscle that you are not used to using. And just like if it's like if you're going to the gym and you're not used to that, it feels uncomfortable. But the thing is, it feels uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar more than anything else. And when you have this lack of familiarity, it can cause some, it can provoke some insecurity. And maybe the fact that you're waiting for a response, that can also make you feel insecure as well. And your mind starts to think about all the problems that could happen because you've not gone through this process before. But like I said, today's conversation is going to be very brief because I want to give you some context and a solution for that time period that you're waiting to get the feedback because you've just made a decision. Congratulations to you, based on imperfect information. You're making progress. But at the end of the day, here's the context. Only one of two outcomes are going to happen. So let's go back. You've just made this decision. You've made a decision on imperfect information, and you're feeling uncomfortable because you're not used to doing this. Well, guess what? The first outcome is you've applied this 40-70 principle, and now you realize that the decision that you made, that it was much faster You didn't wait to get to 100% of the information. And guess what? Outcome number one is that it's moving in a direction that it was supposed to move in. And it continues to move in that direction. And guess what? You saved yourself time, you saved yourself stress, you saved yourself anxiety, and you got the decision much faster, and it's going in the right direction. That's outcome one. The second outcome is you recognize that the decision that you made, it's not moving in the direction that you wanted it to. And you also recognize that, hey, listen, you're learning that it didn't go, but because you have done things really well in your life and you made the right decision because that was the right decision for you in the context and things are going off plan, well, if this is something that you have direct control over, well, then you can start to adjust the plan. You start to adjust because you see that it's going off course. So rather than just letting it go off course, because you don't do that in your life, you don't in your personal life, you don't do that in your home life, in your professional life, you start to help it course correct, right? And think about it as an investment. The investment, you bought a property and you realize that it's not going according to plan, well, you start to adjust the plan. If you've invested with someone else and it's going off the plan, well, you're asking them more questions, or hopefully they're telling you about why it's going off plan. You're informing you in it proactively, or if you have to ask questions, you're becoming more informed. And worst case scenario, if you're investing with someone else that you can't control and it goes completely off track, and you've lost 100% of your capital, because we'll make it very concrete, you've lost all of your capital. Remember, this is your investable capital. At no point in time should you ever, ever, ever be investing capital that you can't afford to lose 100% of it. And I use that as an extreme because in the event or the unlikely event that you lose 100% of your capital, either because you still didn't know what you were doing, you were investing yourself, or you were investing with someone else, the outcome at the end of the day is more experience, right? Because once again, you should not ever be investing capital that is part of your reserves or capital that you need to live. Make sure you have your bases covered, make sure you have your reserves. And then in that reason, it's called investable capital, because in the event or the unlikely event that you lose it all, well, that outcome means that you've gained a lot more experience. And that experience is going to help you be a much more informed investor. May not feel like fantastic, but you're becoming a much more informed investor. So at the end of the day, when you're making these informed decisions based on imperfect information, you're getting the feedback, and outcome number one is you're moving in the direction that you should have been moving in, and you're feeling better about it, and you're learning along the way. Outcome two is that you're course correcting if it's something that you control directly and you're getting it back on track. If it's something that you don't control directly, you're informed with the team that is actually managing this process. And I'm using investments, could be anything. And they're giving you the information that you need. In worst case scenario, everything does not work out. You lose the investable capital that you have, and you've gained experience so that the next time you do it, you will actually be a much more informed investor. So I just wanted to leave that with you. Like I said, I know it's very simple, but at the end of the day, when you're making these decisions, it's one of two outcomes that's going to happen. And either you're going to move in the right direction, or you're going to ultimately gain more experience so that you can move in the right direction the next time. So I want to leave it there. Hopefully that context helps. I'd love to get your feedback on today's conversation or episode, because this is a really brief one. I want it to make an impact on you. And also, I'd love to get your feedback. So feel free to leave your honest written review as well as your rating. And don't forget, if you're an accredited investor and you're looking to create more consistent returns and also want to be able to pay less, keep Uncle Sam out of your pocket, well, just go to firstgencp.com/going long. And while you're doing that and sharing today's episode and talking about it and actually taking action, I'll be here preparing your next conversation. So until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much. Trust that you enjoyed today's conversation. And once again, today's conversation was sponsored by First Generation Capital Partners. If you're an accredited investor and want to find out more about how we're helping accredited investors to gain their personal freedom even faster, go to firstgencp.com/going long.